The moment Daniel Wright noticed the small plastic can trembling in the young woman's hands at the grocery store return counter, something inside him tightened in a way no balance sheet ever had. The fluorescent lights above hummed softly, carts rattled past, and the world moved on as usual. But in that single frozen second, the lonely CFO of a billion-dollar corporation felt an unexpected weight crash into his chest. He saw the exhaustion in her posture, the quiet shame in her lowered eyes, and the infant asleep against her shoulder, unaware that his next meal was being taken away. Daniel had negotiated hostile takeovers without blinking, but this simple scene struck him harder than any corporate loss he had ever faced. Before the story goes any further, take a moment right now. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and quiet acts that can change lives, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel to support stories that remind us what humanity still looks like. Daniel had not always been this hollow inside. Years ago, he believed success would fill every empty corner of his life. Raised in Ohio in a strict Christian household, he learned discipline early and ambition soon followed. By his early 40s, he was the chief financial officer of a major tech firm in Chicago, earning more money than his parents could have imagined. Yet his penthouse apartment echoed with silence. His marriage had ended quietly, not in anger but in neglect. He had missed birthdays, holidays, and ordinary evenings, always promising things would slow down later. Later never came, and now loneliness sat beside him every night like an unpaid debt. On that afternoon, Daniel had stopped at the store out of habit, grabbing items he barely needed, his mind buried in forecasts and quarterly projections. That was when he noticed her. Emily Carter looked painfully young to be carrying such heavy responsibility. Her coat was thin for the season, her hair pulled back hastily, and her face bore the unmistakable look of someone who had not slept properly in months. The cashier spoke softly, but the interaction was clear enough. The formula could not be returned without a receipt. Emily's shoulders sagged as she nodded, clutching the can tighter, then slowly sliding it across the counter as if each inch hurt. Daniel stood rooted to the floor. He thought of numbers, of budgets, of how easily he approved six-figure expenses without a second thought. Yet here was a mother forced to choose between pride and her child's hunger. He told himself it was none of his business, the same excuse he had used for years to avoid anything uncomfortable. But something had already shifted. He followed her at a distance as she walked out into the parking lot, her steps heavy, her breath shallow as if she were holding back tears. Emily's life had unraveled quietly. After her husband passed away in a construction accident 2 years earlier, everything became a careful calculation. Rent, utilities, childcare, groceries. She worked nights at a nursing home and days cleaning houses when she could find the energy. Faith was the only thing that kept her standing when exhaustion threatened to pull her under. She prayed often, not for wealth or miracles, but simply for enough. Enough strength, enough patience, enough food to last a week. Returning the formula felt like failure. Even though she had done everything she could, Daniel approached her near her aging sedan. He felt awkward, out of place in his tailored coat and polished shoes. He had spoken confidently in boardrooms filled with executives, yet now his voice felt unreliable. He simply held out the receipt from his own purchase, offering to help without making a spectacle of it. Emily hesitated, suspicion flickering across her face, but desperation softened her resistance. She accepted, tears finally spilling as relief broke through the walls she had built to survive. That moment did not end when they parted ways. It followed Daniel home, lingering in the quiet of his apartment, louder than the city outside. He realized how insulated his life had become, how success had narrowed his vision instead of expanding it. Over the next few days, he found himself thinking about Emily and her baby during meetings, during meals, during prayer he had not sincerely attempted in years. Something inside him had awakened, and it would not let him return to sleep. Daniel made a decision that surprised even himself. He reached out discreetly through community connections at his church and learned more about Emily's situation. He was careful not to turn charity into control. Instead, he offered help in ways that preserved dignity. Grocery gift cards appeared in her mailbox. A child care fund was quietly set up through a local nonprofit. When her car broke down, The repair was paid for before she even knew who had arranged it. Emily sensed that these were not random blessings. They felt intentional, thoughtful, almost personal. As weeks passed, Daniel found himself volunteering at the same community center Emily sometimes visited. He did not announce his position or wealth. He stacked chairs, served meals, and listened to stories he had ignored for most of his adult life. The more he gave, the less lonely he felt. For the first time in years, his prayers were not transactional. They were grateful, humble, and alive. He began to see faith not as a childhood obligation, but as a living call to action. Emily, meanwhile, began to breathe easier. The constant fear that had sat in her chest slowly loosened its grip. With stable childcare, she enrolled in a certification program that promised better hours and pay. She still struggled, but hope now shared the load. She often wondered about the man from the store, the stranger whose kindness had shifted the course of her life. She prayed for him, not knowing his name, asking God to return the blessing in ways she could not. Months later, the community center hosted a small fundraiser. Daniel attended without fanfare, content to blend into the crowd. Emily was there too, her baby now stronger, her posture more confident. When their eyes met, recognition passed between them like a quiet understanding. No words were needed. They shared a moment of gratitude that felt sacred, grounded in the shared belief that God works through ordinary people willing to listen. Daniel's transformation did not stop there. He began advocating within his company for ethical initiatives, fair wages, and community investment. Colleagues noticed a change, the way he spoke less about profit and more about purpose. Some questioned it, others followed. For Daniel, success finally had meaning beyond accumulation. It became a tool rather than an idol. As this story comes close to its end, take a moment to reflect. If this journey touched you, please comment below and share what kindness or second chances mean to you. Your words might be the encouragement someone else needs today. In the end, Daniel returned often to that grocery store in his mind, to the moment everything changed. He understood now that loneliness is not cured by achievement, but by connection. Emily never knew the full extent of his influence, and that was exactly how he wanted it. The true reward was not gratitude or recognition, but the quiet knowledge that one small act, guided by faith and compassion, had rewritten 2 lives. And somewhere between spreadsheets and prayers, Daniel Wright finally found what he had been searching for all along: